Hello, everyone. Welcome to Sports and Shorts of Sorts, episode 12. Still kicking it, still going strong. Here we go, number 12. When I think of 12, I think of the jersey hanging in my closet, or in this case, the one I'm currently wearing. Aaron Rodgers, formerly of the Green Bay Packers, but one of the best quarterbacks ever. Four MVPs to his name, but only one Super Bowl. So, that ties him with his predecessor, Brett Favre. But that is old news, I guess. Just like Favre, Rodgers has joined the Jets, and he'll be rocking the number 8, just as mentioned in the podcast episode number 8. Now, that was my number 12, but I know a lot of football fans would pick a different number 12, understandably so. TB12, Tom Brady. So he is, people call him the GOAT. 7 Super Bowls is hard to argue against. 5 Super Bowl MVPs. And I actually have that jersey. I know I'm not a big Patriots guy, but I was in Wembley. Patriots were taking on the Bucks. I was with my dad. But that'll be a story for another podcast, actually. That's a good one there. But you just got to give Brady his flowers. He did great. He had one of the best careers, if not the best career ever. But quarterbacks and 12s must go hand in hand, because some other ones you think of: Terry Bradshaw, Roger Staubach, Jim Kelly, Randall Cunningham, Joe Namath, who said he'd actually unretire his 12 so Rodgers could wear it. But Rodgers said, no, I'm good with the 8. Bob Greasy, Ken Stabler, Andrew Luck. But yeah, if you're a quarterback, pick 12. Probably a good chance you'll be all right. But going to the hardwood, you'd go to, first one I thought of, John Stockton. Guy was probably around my height, a lot skinnier, but, tough as nails point guard who he played so long just with the Jazz, 19 years in the NBA. That's crazy. Made the playoffs every single year. I know he played with Karl Malone, and we had a coach like Jerry Sloan, but that's the consistency of that it's pretty amazing. And he was part of the 92 men's Olympic team, the Dream Team. But one of my favorite lines about John Stockton, I think it was Chris Webber. Yeah, he was on a show talking about it, and he said he'd show some of his rookies. His minivan would pull out, guy would kick out the kids, and then he'd come in and bust their ass on the court, and that's John Stockton. Pretty crazy. But yeah, another 12 you think of is Dwight Howard. He's currently playing ball in Taiwan, but man, young Dwight Howard was something else. 3 times Defensive Player of the Year. He got that team to the finals, like dunk contest stuff. They say Dwight might not have had that killer's edge, but man, a young Dwight. It's hard to imagine we'll see another person like that come in the NBA out of high school with that frame. Like, it just crazy. So hopefully, I like to see him come back to the NBA. He's been balling in Taiwan, but it'd be cool to see him back here. But yeah, another 12, John Morant. He's been getting a lot of bad pub more than anything, but yeah, I have his jersey in the closet. Like, he's a phenomenal player. He's the real deal. But he had a scary thing earlier this week where he was just on Instagram putting troubling posts. There's always someone putting kind of negative posts, and you're like, oh, we got to check in on them. I guess the police actually went and checked on the star to see how he's doing, and he just said he's taking a social media break. So that was his bye to the world, which is good. If you got trouble and going on in your life, social media is probably the last thing you need. So good on him. I wish him well. He's still a young dude figuring his shit out. But yeah, going to the Diamond, got a few 12s. Roberto Alomar, Blue Jays legend. You got Dusty Baker. And in footy, you have Marcelo. He used to be a Real Madrid player. You think he's still lighting it up in Brazil. And if you think of a Chelsea player, Michael John Obi. So yeah, some good players with 12. So yeah, last time I'll probably wear this for a while though, as he's a Jet. But it's always the way of sports. We'll go to the NBA. There was a Western Conference final still. It seems so long ago. But yeah, they played game 4, and it was a really good game. LeBron James came out and was like, I got to put this team on my back. As old as he is, just beat up. He did everything he could. It's just a lot of the other Lakers didn't really show up. AD had 21 points, 14 rebounds. But Jokic, he just made big plays when he needed to. Two-time MVP. He won the Magic Johnson Western Conference Player of the Series award, I guess. But yeah, his slinging three-pointer that he hit over AD, similar to earlier in the series to help ice the game, was crazy. And another shout out Kitchener's own Jamal Murray. I'm so pumped he's doing well. Like I said, that ACL injury, he was worried if the team even wanted to keep him anymore, but they're on to their way to the finals. First time ever in history. June 1st, they'll be, as you'll hear coming up, they'll be waiting for their opponent. But you got to feel for them, man. And the thing I didn't like, a lot of writers were coming out, and you could tell like they wanted Lakers Celtics final because it's easy to write about. They're saying, there's not a lot to write about with the Denver Nuggets. So, but man, there's tons to write about. You got the two-time MVP from Serbia, a second-round pick. You have Jamal Murray from Kitchener, Ontario. Michael Porter Jr. had that terrible back injury that was going to derail his career, not even let him be where he's at now. So, I don't know. I think the writers are just being lazy. If I could think of three items off the top of my head like that, like, Jesus, come on. Get your shit together, people. But, yeah, with LeBron going out, I don't want to make a big Lakers thing because we should be talking about the Nuggets. But, man, the hate I've been reading about LeBron James. Like, I'm not even a big LeBron James guy. Like, he's one of the best players ever. We're witnessing that. No one can deny that. But everyone shits on him for everything. Stat padding, this and that. He's trying to win the game. The guy's almost 40 years old, and everyone's just going at him. He hasn't got in trouble with the law. He's been a pretty good citizen in the NBA, but man, what are people going to do when he retires? There's all this hate that's going to be needed to get directed at something. So, I don't know, maybe LeBron James, by playing in the NBA, is attracting so much hate. He's saving other people from these very angry people. But regardless, we'll see what happened. He has an injury, so we'll see if he gets that taken care of. I imagine he will. The man puts a lot of money into his body, and it shows considering how long he's played, at what level. But that's old news. We're on to the East, which is a series still going on. But we'll get there. We'll see how we got to where we are. Because these three games happened during the week. It was wild. You had game 4, sweeps happening, right? Wrong, obviously. Celtics come back, did what they got to do. I guess they've been watching documentaries about the 2004 Red Sox coming back against the Yankees 3-0. So that's kind of helped. And, we went back to Boston for game 5, and they didn't look anything like the teams that lost the first 3 games. They totally dominated. Miami looked like that team they looked like Boston early in the series. They were just, wow, someone topsy-turvy flipped it upside down. And then we went to game 6, the most recent game. This one was down in Miami. They wanted to end it there, right? But, man, Bam and Jimmy Butler played so bad. So inefficient, sorry. They still did other things, but offensively, they couldn't buy a bucket. 9 for 37 from the field. The others are what kept them in the game. The Caleb Martin, the Gabe Vincents. If without them, this game could have been really ugly, but it was super tight. Miami even came back. You had a ridiculous foul by Al Horford in the corner. Jimmy tiptoeing the line, foul, going for a 3. So he gets 3 free throws to put them ahead. He hits all of them. 1-point lead. But it's very strange because during all this, they put the clock from 2.1 seconds to 3 seconds. That 0.9, they didn't really explain it. Excuse me, but you've seen them do this before. They'll just change the clock after a replay. Usually there's an explanation, but they're like, okay. So the Heat have to go down. They have 3 seconds. The Celtics have to make a shot. They have 3 seconds left. So they draw an inbounds play. They're down there. And it was very strange. Even Stan Van Gundy pointed it out. Max Strus, he was not even defending the ball. He was totally playing free safety, trying to tip it away. They denied good ball denial to Jason Tatum, but they threw it to Marcus Smart. He threw up a 3, kind of rattled around. But the inbounder, Derek White, he went to the corner after the pass. When the shot went up, crashed the boards. And as the ball, it came to the one spot where Derek White, if it would have went to the other side, we wouldn't even be talking about this. But the ball came to where Derek White was. Quick catch, tip in. By the time it released his hand, it was between 0.1 and 0.2. And yeah, that's it. Game. Back to game 7. to the best words in sports. We're going back to the Boston Garden, and wow, all the pressure. I don't even know who's got the pressure. You know, a team has never been up 3-0 and lost, which is what Miami's doing. Or like Boston, no teams come back 3-0 in 150 tries. It was 149 coming into this conference finals, but it just happened to the Lakers. They got swept. So wow, we'll see what happens. Game 7 Monday, May 29th. Watch it. It's going to be crazy. I hope anyway. I hope it's a nice, compelling game coming down to the last basket again. Sorry, I just got a dry mouth here. Oh man, I cannot wait for that. So excited. And we'll see who gets the Larry Bird trophy for best Eastern Conference player. I don't know. Like if the Heat win, Caleb Martin has kind of been the best player, but who knows? We'll see what happens in Game 7. Excitement. Sticking with basketball, like, oh man, just after the podcast came out last week, Carmelo Anthony announced his retirement. So I have to give a shout out to Carmelo. You know, he never did win a ring in the NBA. He did win college championship with Syracuse as a freshman, but he put up amazing stats. Like he's leaving the NBA 9th all-time scorer. He's got those 3 gold medals, that 1 bronze from, you know, that unfortunate year for the U.S. when Argentina and Ginobili won the gold. But yeah, craziness. And he was part of that, you know, crazy 2003 draft class with LeBron, Chris Bosh, Dwayne Wade. But he's you know, him and LeBron were the last 2 left. Now it's just LeBron from that draft class. But, you know, I think Carmelo should have won Rookie of the Year when he came out. But it went to LeBron, even though Carmelo got his team to the playoffs. But we're not going to debate a trophy 20 years ago. Not today. But, you know, a lot of people, when they say Melo now, they think, oh, the Melo Ball. But when I hear Melo, I'm always going to think Carmelo. So it's whether, you know, you remember him for his original Nuggets days, his Knicks days, his OKC / Houston / Portland / Lakers days. But, you know, if you need a bucket, you put it in Carmelo's hands and he'll get it. And there's some interesting takes on what's going to happen with his jersey retirements. You know, like he did bounce around a bit, and Denver's where he got his start, and he did great things before he got to Denver. They were absolute trash. 17-65 was their record the season before Carmelo went there. After Carmelo went there, the very next season as a rookie, 43-39, and as I said, making the playoffs. So he had huge impact there. And the thing is, though, his number is 15, which is what Nikola Jokic wears now. And Nikola Jokic has kind of surpassed basically everything Carmelo did there. So I don't know what you're going to do. Can you retire 2 numbers with 1 team? Yeah, it's been done. The New York Knicks did it. Dick McGuire and Earl Pearl Monroe both have their number, ironically, 15, retired with the New York Knicks. So it can be done, and there's already talks going around. I was reading that they want to retire his number. New York have it hanging in the rafters in MSG. So, you know, he never won too much in New York. He got him the playoffs. He had a scoring title there, but again, he brought buzz to that city. Again, the Knicks were not very good before he got there, but, you know, he had a swell career, so I'll give Carmelo a little clap there. One last NBA story before I jump to the NHL. This was so crazy. Like reading about this, I had to double check. Eric Lewis, the official in the NBA, I guess it's been figured out he's got a Twitter burner account. He goes on this burner account and he defends mostly himself on numerous occasions. I guess let me get his name right here. Blair Cutliff is the profile name he goes under, and that's what he's been doing. He goes out there and someone will comment like, Eric Lewis is terrible ref, look at these stats. And he'll be like, what about on the players? Or just deflect. And it's pretty crazy. And with like betting being such a thing it is now and in the NBA, like to hear any kind of, you know, questioning the integrity of the game, this is going to cause a huge thing. So there is an investigation going on. And we'll see what happened. LeBron's already come out on Twitter, Patrick Beverley, because there's that, you know, where he came up and he held the camera and he was showing the ref, like, look at how bad of a call you made, and you got teed up for it. And he's like, he's bringing that picture up. Everyone's keeping their receipts on this guy. I don't know. It's kind of funny because during the broadcast, like Tyler Hero's he's missed a lot of these playoffs, and he's got some interesting outfits on the bench. And Stan Van Gundy's been like, he needs to play because these outfits are trash, basically. And then, Tyler Hero goes on and says, yeah, just like your coaching. So I don't know if he was calling his own suit trash or saying Stan was a good coach, but Stan in the broadcast was saying, this generation's kind of soft. And I find that kind of funny since this 52-year-old official can't take any criticism on Twitter, has to make a burner account to come back at these people. It's kind of funny, but it makes you think, man, I hope this guys are fixing games because that's not cool. Regardless of betting, you don't want people changing the outcome of the game based on whatever the fuck Twitter shit or. We'll see what happens with this investigation. I hope it was nothing. It was just a guy, getting his feelings all hurt. Hopefully, we'll see. But like I said, we're going to the hockey playoffs. Hurricanes and Panthers. Game 3. They went there and back home to Florida. Sorry, Bobrovsky did amazing. 1-0 shutout. Bobrovsky was back on the case, so. We went to Game 4, still in Florida, and we were getting our brooms ready, and brooms did their thing. Matthew Tkachuk got a third period goal like 4 seconds ago, just minutes before Hurricanes tied it up, and everybody was pumped. They're like, oh, and just to have Tkachuk score that, you had the highs and lows, but Tkachuk's been a baller, or I guess you can't use baller in hockey terms, but he has been lighting it up all postseason. Like, very good candidate for Conn Smythe, in my opinion. But we'll see what happens. They'll be chilling, waiting in the Stanley Cup Finals for their next opponent, which still hasn't been yet to determine. Because Golden Knights, they went in on Game 3 to Dallas. They beat the shit out of them, causing Jamie Benn to. Early dumb play, dirty cross check, got him suspended for 2 games. So we're like, what is going on here? The Stars are imploding. But you know what? Game 4, they showed up. They did what they had to do. They went to overtime. Joe Pavelski, again, another overtime winner, which set up a Game 5 back in Vegas. And you're like, oh, well, Vegas might end it here. Man, the Stars carried that momentum in the Sin City, took it right from the poker tables to the ice. They did what they had to do. Force Game 6 back in Dallas. That'll be happening Monday. So we'll see if they can keep that going. Hopefully another Game 7. You gotta love it. Game 7s. But Florida's chilling, waiting, wishing, seeing what's gonna happen, who they're gonna play next. But man, there were some football season ending. The footy seasons, I guess. Can't they call it football here yet? But I always start with the Premier League because that's usually what I watch the most. But this Bundesliga in Germany had one of the wildest endings. I had to have, on Saturday, I had both games going on the computer screen side by side because I had to watch them both. Like, they had both had such big implications, Dortmund, all they had to do was win, right? They had to win this game against Mainz, who was coming in losers of the last 4. All they had to do was win, and they'd get it. Bayern Munich needed to win and have Dortmund lose or tie. So they had it. All they had to do was win. And shit got crazy. Like, I was watching them both, like I said. Bayern Munich got off to a quick start. Kingsley Coleman scored. So you're like, oh, wow. So Bayern's going to put the pressure on a bit. Then moments later, off a corner, Mainz scored. 15 minutes in. So, then all of a sudden, Dortmund gets a penalty. You're like, oh, okay, they're going to equalize it. Sebastian Haller, he's been lighting it up all years. Nope, he was robbed. Robbed by the keeper. So everybody was like, what is going on? We're down 1-0 to Mainz. What is going on? Get this, 24th minute. Mainz get a second goal. So going into halftime, Bayern Munich's up 1-0, doing what they need to do. Dortmund is down 2-0. So they're doing the opposite of what they need to do. You could hear the crowd, like, in Dortmund, like, what are we doing? How are we losing? They finally scored in the 69th minute. Crowd went crazy. What is happening? And then people were checking their phones, or if you're like me, you're watching the other game, because a penalty to Cologne, 81st minute against Bayern Munich, and they convert it. Oh my God. So they're tied. It doesn't matter that Dortmund's losing because Bayern isn't winning. So the title is back in the hands of Dortmund. But just like a Hollywood script, 8 minutes later, freshly substituted in the game, Jamal Musiala, I can never say his name right. He's a young German stud, though. This guy scored a beauty goal to snatch the title back from Dortmund's hands into their own as they go up 2-1 over Cologne. You're like, what is happening? Dortmund had a last bit of hope. In the 96th minute, they score, make it 2-2. So there is a chance, but this is the 96th minute of like 97, 98 minutes to be played. And then, off the kickoff, they stole the ball, tried to kick it into the box, but there was just no time left. So, finishing 2-2, Dortmund and Mainz, and then having Bayern Munich beat Cologne 2-1. Bayern leapfrogs with that last minute goal. Like, oh my God, it felt like I was watching a Chubby Checker concert with all the twists going on. This was crazy. But at the end of the day, Bayern Munich are the champs. 11th consecutive Bundesliga title. Oh my goodness. Like, that's something. They were equal with Borussia Dortmund on points, but the goal differential, 15 goal differential for Bayern Munich is what the difference was. So you'd be like, oh my God, they're all celebrating like seconds, maybe minutes after the game. Bayern Munich fired CEO Oliver Kahn, legend of the club, and director Hassan Salihamidzic. I can never say his name, but I've seen them both on Amazon Prime. They have a good show where it's similar to the one they did with Arsenal or Manchester City, and they just kind of follow behind the scenes. It was really cool, but man, to have them canned just after such a huge game, amazing. But with that Bundesliga rounding up, it tells us who's playing where. So Bayern Munich and Dortmund, obviously, for Champions League. Leipzig will be joining them. Union Berlin beat Werder Bremen, and Freiburg lost to Frankfurt, which means Union Berlin will be grabbing that last Champions League spot, while Freiburg will be in the Europa League, and Bayern Leverkusen in the Europa Conference. And we know Hertha Berlin and Schalke are relegated, and the third team is yet to be decided. That will be June 1st. We'll start the 2-game playoff between Stuttgart and my tastiest team, Hamburger. They'll have a 2-leg playoff. Winner, Bundesliga. Loser drops to the league below. So, yeah, pretty crazy. We had a few midweek games in the Prem to make sure everybody was playing their last game Sunday. Man U trounced Chelsea midweek, and Chelsea supporters were singing at the Man U fans, "You're nothing special, we lose every week," which is kind of funny, but it shows just the state of Chelsea and what they're in. But anyway, that was midweek. That led us to the Sunday, the epic finale to the season, and Man City had it already wrapped up, so there wasn't a lot of drama at the top of the table. All the drama was at the bottom. We know Southampton was going down already, as we specified before, but there were 2 spots left, and there were 3 teams for these 2 spots. So who was going down? Everton needed to win, and they're basically staying up. If Leicester won, they would need Everton to lose, right? So, or lose or draw, because I believe Leicester had the tiebreaker. But Leicester was hosting my West Ham team, and they did what they had to do. They beat them 2-1. They did their end. So all eyes were on the Everton match, and it was 0-0 going in the half. You could feel the tension. Someone in a footy group we're in, he was losing his mind, big Everton fan, but in the 57th minute, they finally scored. They went up 1-0. You could hear the crowd losing it. The implications of staying in the Premier League or dropping to the league below, there's so much at stake. So, you could see the jubilation on the faces of Everton fans as they're staying up with their win. And you could see the devastation on the Leicester City fans. Man, this team just won the title not that long ago. And now 7 seasons ago they won. And now they're going back to the championship. What an odd and unique run for Leicester City to get promoted, come in, win the Premier League. There's an FA Cup win in there as well. They've been consistently pretty good since they've been up. And that's why it's such big news that they're going down this year. Very, very wild. But that's why you play the game. This stuff happens. So a quick summarization. Man City are the champions. Runner-ups Arsenal. Man U and Newcastle will join Man City in Champions League. Liverpool and Brighton are Europa League bound. Good on you, Brighton. It's unfamiliar territory for them. And Aston Villa will be going to the Europa Conference League. And the teams going down: Southampton, Leeds United, and Leicester City. Still feels weird to say. So that's the Premier League season. Donezo for another year. But you had the EFL Championship playoff. We knew what teams were in the Premier League next year, except for one. Coventry City and Luton Town played in this playoff game, and it was Premier League worthy. Like, it's a very crazy start though. Like, Luton Town captain Tom Lockyer, he was running and just dropped, and it looked like he was out. It's kind of scary. They stretchered him off and took him right to the medical attention. Like, when you see people just collapse like that over nothing, it's scary. He is okay. He was in hospital, so that's the main thing. That's all that really matters. But man, it was a heck of a game. This game ended up going to extra time, and it was 1-1 or 1-0 at half for Luton Town, but Coventry tied it up in the 66th minute. Extra time didn't do anything, so we went to penalties with all on the line. Was the Premier League promotion. Wow, talk about pressure. And everybody kicked phenomenal. First 12 kicks were something like out of a teaching course for how to take a penalty. They were all so good. And then Dabo came up for Coventry City. Like, we're on to the 12th kick, so a few of we're getting to the territory, not your top five, right? So this is the sixth taker for this team. And like, yeah, Dabo comes up and he boomed it, which would have been a field goal in American football, but it's the European footy here. This is not good. The ball went right over. You could hear one half of the stadium scream with delight, the other half totally crushed. And Dabo's hands went right to his face. He's sobbing. Oh man, I could only imagine, you're not just costing your team a game, you're costing your team the chance to play at the top level. Like, shit. I feel for them. But Luton Town, you got to give it to them. They've earned promotion. They're going to the Premier League. They got to put money into that stadium they have because it is not up to Premier League standards. But man, again, big shout out to them. They were in the National League not that long ago. And Impanzo, I've mentioned him in other podcasts, he started with them in the National League and worked their way up. Very impressive, very inspiring to people that like Wrexham. They're trying to do the Luton Town thing. So again, give them kudos. You gotta love it. There was Coppa Italia midweek. That's the Italian Cup in the English leagues. They have the FA Cup. This is their thing, and it was between Inter Milan and Fiorentina, and Inter Milan won it, adding some more hardware to their trophy case. So good on ya. Inter Milan will be playing the Champions League next, and Fiorentina will be playing West Ham in the Europa Conference League. So, excuse me. And sticking with the Italians, there was some pretty good games in Serie A. The biggest match was AC Milan and Juventus. A lot of European implications on that. And AC Milan, they took that one 1-0. And there was another wild game with Hellas Verona, who were in the relegation battle. They had a 1-0 lead, and they're like, man, we might save our season. Then the 96th minute, Empoli tied the game up, putting Verona back in the drop zone. And Lecce picked up a huge win over Monza to secure their safety in the Serie A. But it's looking like Spezia or Verona, who I just mentioned, will be getting regulated. I had relegated. Sorry, regulated. Sorry. Warren G up in here. But yeah, Spezia and Verona tied on points. And I'm like, well, what's the tiebreaker in Serie A? I had to check the old Google, actually. And what happens is the two teams, if they're tied at the end of the season on points, the two teams play a single leg playoff game, 90 minutes and penalties, no extra time. And that's how they decide. Winner will stay in Serie A, loser will go down. So, yeah, next weekend is the last weekend of Serie A season, so it's going to be pretty wild. Verona will be visiting AC Milan, so that's not an easy one. And Spezia will be taking on Roma, who also have a lot to play for as they're both trying to get European qualifiers. So we'll see. Next Sunday will hopefully be as wild as the Premier League's one this Sunday. We'll go to the La Liga real quick because Valencia grabbed a last-minute goal to have a draw, putting Espanyol in the relegation zone for permanent. We know Elche and Espanyol are for sure going down, but next week is the last week of La Liga, and there are potentially 6 teams that could get that last drop spot. depending on who beats who and what happens. So right now, Valladolid is in that spot, and we'll see what happens. Like I said, next week La Liga will be ending. They play all the games at the same time. It's so wild. But a quick note about the La Liga. I mentioned last podcast there was something coming out about the mistreatment of Vinicius Jr. and the day of the podcast release, a lot more information came out. So I just like to say that Valencia was hit with a partial stadium ban for 5 matches and a fine of 45,000 euros, which is the highest financial penalty imposed on Spanish football following a racist abuse at the ground. Like, it's crazy. Like, even before the kickoff, Real Madrid players were getting off the bus and hundreds of fans were chanting, "You're a monkey, Vinicius." Like, what the fuck? The racist chanting continued throughout the match. In the 73rd minute, the Spanish referee had to stop the match. An announcement was made over the PA system telling people to, like, chill the fuck out. But all the crowd would start doing or they just continue. And I don't really want to repeat some of it. I'll say some of it here. I don't want to trigger anyone, but these are what they were chanting towards Vinicius. "Fucking black, you're an idiot. I shit on your dead family, son of bitch. Vinicius idiot, black son of bitch. Vinicius dog, son of a bitch. And monkey, you are a fucking monkey." Wow. Like, this is 2023 and people are still fucking pieces of shit. And, like, surprisingly, Valencia appealed the decision of the partial stadium closure because, they lose money. How can you, like, oh my God. And here's I'll quote what they said. "Valencia wishes to show its total disagreement and indignation at the unfair and disproportionate penalty imposed by the competition committee. Competition committee. That is bogus. You can't have your fans act like pieces of shit and play the victim card." And like the very next games of La Liga, you have that United Against Racism right next to the score graphic. It's like, you're pushing this, but what are you actually doing? Other clubs around La Liga, they stood with solidarity and Vinicius. Like the Real Madrid basketball team gave him support. Like, everyone's trying to stop people from being pieces of shit, but is it just our nature as humans? Like, I don't know people that do this, but yeah, people suck. But we'll go to French League, last European stop. Paris Saint-Germain, PSG won their 11th French title. They won it in an uneventful draw against Strasbourg, so a lot of parts are settled for the most part. It wraps up next weekend, the Ligue 1, but yeah, it looks like pretty much things settled, except one of the Europa spots, like Lille, Rennes, Monaco are all vying for those last spots, and Auxerre, has a 2-point lead over Nantes for that last relegation spot. Nantes needs to beat Angers, and Auxerre need to lose to second-seeded Lens. So, could happen. A lot of drama. All these fans, like, they should take blood pressure readings on these last days of footy. But it's a very big motorsport weekend as well. And it seemed like qualifying was the best part of the Monaco Grand Prix. You had all kinds of shit. You had Sergio Perez messing his car up going to the back of the field. You had Max Verstappen doing a crazy last sector to get the pole. But yeah, qualifying was where it was at. The race, Max went out front and just stayed out front. You might have heard that before. Fernando Alonso got another podium, getting second for Aston Martin, and Esteban Ocon got his first podium of the year, getting third with Alpine. So yeah, not much change at the top. Those two Red Bulls just sitting up there. You got Max, Perez, and then you got Alonso. And then followed by the Mercedes boys, Lewis and George. That's your top five. Very down year for Ferrari. I still can't believe that. So you have Red Bull running away with the constructors, followed by Aston Martin and Mercedes. Only a 1-point difference between them. But this is definitely a one-bull race with Red Bull. They're going to, unless anything big happens, I don't know. They seem to be running away with everything. But quick turnaround is next week we go to the Spanish GP, which takes place just outside Barcelona. So, yeah. Monaco Grand Prix, one of the biggest races in F1. We'll go to Indy 500, one of the biggest races in IndyCar racing, the 107th running, at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. who would get the chance to chug the big thing of milk? I had to look in, why are they chugging milk after this? And that started in 1936 when Louis or Louis Meyer drank buttermilk in Victory Lane because his mother said it would refresh him on a hot day. So there you go, a little milk fact. But yeah, the race was pretty wild, and 14 laps to go, we got a red flag. This crash was crazy. I had to show the wife later in the day because like this car spun, and as it was coming back to the track, Kyle Kirkwood hit it, and his one tire just went, whew, it's like took off right over the fence, just like someone crushing a homer. That ball went over the fence. Luckily, it didn't hit anybody. Can you imagine getting hit by a tire like that? God damn! But that flew up, and the Kirkwood's car flew upside down. It was on its not a roof, I guess. They have a little bar there, and they went to his in car. You could just see him laying there, sparks flying. It's pretty crazy. At least the car technology has come so far that he's alive. So, because it looked bad, maybe 50 years ago, that's a death. I don't know, but yeah. After that, they're like, okay, red flag, we'll get going. Race continued. Boom, another red flag. Car got in an accident, decided to do like a Tony Hawk grind, had his tire going along the wall. That was pretty interesting. And he came to a halt as another car crashed in the back of him. And you're like, okay, this race is going to end. Wrong. Third red flag. They were even wondering if they do another red flag, is there enough time? But they did it. Joseph Newgarden passed Marcus Ericsson to take his first Indy 500. So good on him. And there was another big race. I guess this is a huge Memorial Day weekend in the States. And they do, this was the Coca-Cola 600, which is in Charlotte, North Carolina. And that's a big one. I had to ask my buddy, why is this so big? My buddy Chris, the expert in the NASCAR field. And yeah, a lot of the NASCAR teams are in around Charlotte normally, so this is like a homecoming thing. It's the longest race by distance, and that there have been drivers that have done the Indy 500 and the Coca-Cola 600 the same weekend. Like, this is crazy. And John Andretti's done it, Robbie Gordon, Tony Stewart, and Kurt Busch. And it was announced Kyle Larson's going to attempt the feat next year. Like, it's crazy. You gotta get a helicopter to hook you up, get you there, like, because you gotta travel, and what that does to the body can't be good. But the race didn't even go down. All this hype, but rained out. So we'll be going on Monday, May 29th. Get your NASCAR fix. Just started this weekend as well. The French Open and Roland Garros is back. So second Grand Slam of the year. The Australian Open's the first. This is the second. Huge hole in the tournament as Rafael Nadal isn't playing. He's the king of clay, right? 14-time French Open champ. So it's going to open the door for someone else to come in there. Maybe Djokovic. He did win the Australian Open. But my picks, I'm sticking with Canadians. Denis Shapovalov, I'm hoping he has a great run on the men's side. And on the women's side, Leylah Fernandez, she barely got out of round one, winning in 3 sets. But I'm hoping she gets it together the rest of the tournament and has a great run. Won't dive too much in the Jays this week. They were a very busy week. Lost 3 of 4 to the Rays. Ouch. But then they went to Minnesota, and won 2 out of 3 there. Their next series will be against Milwaukee starting May 30th. So hopefully the Jays can turn it around now that they're not playing AL East teams, as they are still in the basement of that. So let's turn it around there, Jays. But wow. I was wondering what short I was going to go with from here. The last few talked MRIs, Mother's Day, sunburn in Rome. This one might be a little spicier. So, yeah, in my early 20s, there's a big event, in Saskatoon called Coco Loco, right? Beach theme kind of party. Well, I think anyway. I'm not 100% because I never actually got in. We'll get there. Some friends and I decided we'd want to go to this place, right? So we're like, let's go for some pre-drinks. It's near Prairieland. I know if you're not familiar with Saskatoon, it's a big event center. They have a cool little park near there, a big hill. So we just pulled near Prairieland, cracked some beers, a little pre-beers before. We're like, what are we missing? Let's spark a bowl. So you get the cannabis going, right? Pretty good way to set up for the party. And we're like, all right, but here's our go-to for the night. We had gone in on this. And I'm not condoning this because it is an illegal substance. But, we picked up some ecstasy, MDMA, whatever you want to call it. Figured with that trifecta, we'd be good to go, So we did that. We get to the entrance, and of course, one of our buddies, I won't mention, does not have his ID. Talk about Captain Buzzkill. So we can't just leave him. Like, we've checked, we're ready to go in, we're looking. He's like, oh, my ID. I'm like, oh my God. So, you know what? We can't leave him. No brother left behind. We're like, fuck this awesome party with all these girls. We'll just leave and find something else. So, went to a buddy's townhouse. A few of our friends had one they shared and contacted them, went over. The XT was going pretty good at this point, you know. And we get to the house, our pupils are bigger than toonies, and well, they still let us in. So give our salutations, our hellos, tell what's going on, what we're missing out on, what we're not missing out on. And they're like, hey, well, we've got some mushrooms here. And I'm like, what? I'm like, well, we've already tried 3 different things tonight. What's a fourth? So down the gullet they go. Again, I'm not condoning this, but early 20s, I was like, hey, you know, why not? So now we're just hanging out, you know, tripping as you do on mushrooms, on shadows, lights, whatever catches your eyes. And another friend comes over and sees us. He's like, holy shit, what's going on here? And he was doing his own thing that night. Colombian gold, we'll say. I'm like, well, we're at 4. What's 5? So we try the 5th different vice. Again, I'm not recommending this, but we all did some of that. So we had the continuous alcohol drinking and weed smoking, the MDMA, which is still showing its face here and there, and you get the psychopsilocybin from the mushrooms, and now you had this aggressive blow, just kind of ramping everything up. So again, I'm not trying to encourage people to follow suit at all. This is not recommended by anybody, but it was a fucked up night. A few of us went to go venture to the 7-Eleven in the Sutherland area. Again, I don't know if these areas are making any sense to you, but 2 of the guys I was with run into the store, and I'm just like, I'll chill out here. I didn't want to fucking see anybody that wasn't in our already group. But yeah, I don't know if you've been on a drug-fueled trip to the store, but I'd say it's comparable to Lord of the Rings, that whole journey. You never know where it's going. You kind of want a second breakfast. You're out and about. There's massive spiders showing. Who knows? It's a journey. But yeah, back to 7-Eleven. The guys are in the store, and before they went in, one of them had a big coat with kind of this fur around the hood, you know. Throws it on the ground as he's going. He's like, it's too hot. I want to wear this in there. Watch my coat. And I'm like, all right. And I'm standing there looking at this jacket, just staring at this thing. Like, it had the fur, and it was a little windy, and like the arms, it looked like they were kind of blowing in the wind. And I don't know if you've ever done this schnee, as they've called it, but your nose, it runs sometimes, right? So the whole time, I'm like, you know, you're sniffling a lot. I didn't have a cold. It was warm, but I was sniffling a lot. And the jacket moving its arms, and every time I thought the jacket was going, psst, come here. And as it's moving its arms, and I'm sniffing, it's like, psst, come here. Every time, and I'm looking around, I'm looking at the jacket, I'm scratching my head, I'm like, what? And I'm zooming in real close, like, what is going on here? And as I'm staring, my buddies come back, like, what are you doing? I'm like, oh, nothing. And it all kind of clicked in that, yeah, you were just talking to a jacket on the ground. But yeah, that we eventually journey back. That was Lord of the Rings' second movie, I guess, The Journey Back. And we just kind of chilled out, trip, continued to party, you know. Flashing lights outside would scare you. I remember looking across the street. It looked like there was a lightning storm in someone's house. And you're like, what the fuck is going on? Hindsight, it was someone watching a TV in a dark room, but at the time you weren't thinking that. And I remember spilling pop on the front step and looking away and looking down, and for a second it looked like blood going down the step. Real spooky stuff. So again, I don't condone, but I don't want to tell people what to do with their life. Whatever you do, just make sure you do it safely and don't be a piece of shit to others. That's all I gotta say. But you can tell it's a wild night when you end up sleeping on your sweater on the ground, right? That's always a good pillow. But yeah, time and place for shit, yo. That was my time and place. Like, Definitely not going to do any of that again, but live and learn, as Alanis Morissette says. And yeah, number 12 in the books. We did it. Thanks again for listening, y'all. Ren City out.